Hi guys, we're back with more of the next phase of this, which is where we're talking about more of the evidence, more of the reason that you can say, hey, I know I believe this. Not just because I'm going to I decide to believe it, but because there is evidence that can show you that you can trust it even more. We're going to talk about a little bit of that about today because this is one thing I wanted you to hear because you've probably heard this yourself. I've heard probably between the high school students and college students and adults alike, I've heard probably thousands of people say, "Well, you can tell me about Jesus, but I want to hear what evidence you have, but not use the Bible." And you can do that. There is plenty that shows that. We're going to talk about that a little today and then a lot more in detail in the future. But I want to show how that is an illogical request. Because what you're saying when you say, you can give me evidence of Jesus, but don't give me anything from the Bible. Because you got to remember, the Bible is not a bunch of men 300 years later writing down what they wanted to teach. The Bible, the gospel specifically, were eyewitness testimonies from guys who saw it and walked with Jesus and wrote down or had somebody write down for them. They dictated to somebody. There's only in one case that I know that to be the case. But they wrote down what they saw and what they heard and what happened. This is eyewitness testimony. And you can say, well, yeah, but I don't believe it's in the Bible. When these guys were writing this, they didn't know they were writing the Bible. They were just writing what they saw. And then later on, it was letters to each other and different church leaders and saying, hey, this has happened here, this happened there. They weren't thinking someday, around the late 200s, there's going to be a guy who's going to put all this together in one book. So let's make it sound just great. And we have old manuscripts of these things. We know that this is what was written, but not just that, because we can date the papyri, we can date the ink, we can date things by the writing style, we can date things by the religious leaders and historical rulers of the time that were mentioned. We can date it by events that were mentioned. We can also date it by events that are left out. For example, in 70 AD, Rome totally destroyed the temple after in 66 AD, the Jews revolted against Rome there in Jerusalem. And none of that's mentioned in the New Testament, which suggests that probably happened before 66 because you would have thought that reference would have been made somewhere. We're talking about the Jewish temple. So there's things like that you can look and see to let you know there's reason. We have historical writers outside of the New Testament. We have Tacitus, we have Suetonius, we have Serapion. We have Josephus, the Jewish historian that everybody always refers to. Claudius. We have lots of historians and writers, rulers who wrote different things at the time and within the years after, referencing Jesus, referencing Christians, referencing the crucifixion, referencing Jesus being seen alive again after the cross. All these things that they're not saying they saw it. They're talking about what everybody's talking about. There's all the events that are going on, and you can't just discount it because they didn't stand there and see it. Because that's what I'm bringing my point to. When you say, I only want evidence outside of the Bible, I don't want any evidence from the Bible, you're putting unfair demands on eyewitness testimony. And let me give you this. This is why it's illogical. Because you're asking for somebody to have followed Jesus, heard his teachings, seen all of his miracles, seen that he was arrested, beaten, crucified, buried after he died and was proven dead, and then on the third day, living again, walking around talking to people, and some days, sometime later, rising back into heaven. And then that person saw all this and then chose to write it down for historical posterity's sake, but that person never was changed by those events. That person never chose to believe. See, that's highly illogical to say, well, I don't want anything in the Bible. Once again, the Bible was just put together by men later who said, hey, these are the stories, these are the eyewitness testimonies of Jesus. Let's put this in this one book. So you're asking for there to have been another guy who did exactly what Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John did, except the one thing they did that he didn't do is he did not choose to believe. Now that's asking him to see these miracles. That's asking him to see Jesus alive again. That's asking him to see Jesus rising into heaven and not say, that guy was God. But to just walk away and say, no, I still don't believe. I still don't believe. It'd be like me saying to you, I saw aliens land in my backyard yesterday. And you can come to my house, look in the yard, and you can see the physical evidence of footprints from the spaceship in the grass. Just like we have physical evidence of things that suggest the things in the Bible were true. But all you have is my eyewitness testimony. And this is my testimony to you. I saw aliens. And you say, oh, really? You saw aliens? No, I didn't see aliens. But you saw aliens. Yeah, I saw aliens. So you believe you saw aliens? No, I don't believe I saw aliens. That's a contradiction. That'd be like somebody saying, I saw God. I saw Jesus being God. Really? You saw that? No, I didn't see him being God. Well, you saw him be, yeah, I saw him be God. So you're going to choose to worship him as God, recognize him as God? No, I'm not going to do that. That's highly illogical, highly foolish. If I saw it, if I see you die and 3 days later rise again, I'm going to question where your power's coming from. I'm going to say, wait, this guy's a little bit more than just the dude I've been hanging out at McDonald's with. There's something more about you. And that would be the case here. So it's, one, not just unfair to demand that eyewitness testimony only come from people outside of the Bible, but it's also illogical to expect someone to have seen all the things that we say happened in the Bible, but to not be a changed person, to not accept Christ as God. It's just ludicrous to suggest that would happen. So when people say to you, or when you yourself think, the Bible can't be trusted for evidence, we have to have something outside of that. Because I am going to be giving, in weeks to come, evidence outside of the Bible. But I want you to understand, first and foremost is the Bible. Because it is a historical document as well. It's not just some guy sitting down and writing down what you ought to believe. It's historical proof, historical evidence, historical document, something written down from eyewitness testimony. We have more eyewitness testimony from this book than any other ancient manuscript. And this is the other thing. If you're insisting that all historical documentary that you read and hear and listen to has to have come within its time frame by eyewitnesses who chose to not necessarily believe in what they saw, then you're discounting all ancient history. We have evidence inside the Bible and evidence outside the Bible that these books and these letters were written within 7 to 10 to 15, 20 years after the crucifixion. There is no ancient manuscripts of any ancient history that was written within just a handful of years of the events. They're all hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later. The Bible's the only one. And we're not just talking about, once again, we're not just talking about the Bible. However, you should not discount the Bible just because it also tells you what's right and wrong. And when you do that, you have to ask yourself, why would I? Why would I say, I don't want to hear it from the Bible? Be honest with yourself. It's not going to tell you. When you look at the evidence, you look at the historical facts, you look at the documentation, you look at the way things went in the Bible, and then you say, okay, now I believe, I like the teachings of Jesus, I like the things he said. When you see that, and then you say, maybe he was God, well then, you've got to ask yourself, what are you going to do with that information? And so I could see why you would say, I don't want to hear the Bible, because The Bible demands a decision. The Bible demands a thought. The Bible demands a movement in your life, or either way. I mean, it's either a movement of I'm not going to believe or I'm going to believe, and most of us don't want to face that guilt. I know I don't, because me, I'm a wicked man. See you next time.